Okay, so attempt number 2. I filmed for 3 hours yesterday, and at the end of all of that realized that I had the camera set in slow-mo and I'm filming it again. Welcome back, everybody. We are back on the couch. I promised myself this year that every month I would keep you up to date on what I've been wearing. I have fallen behind. I'm 2, now technically 3 months behind because today is the last day of June. So I have a few catch-up videos to do, and today's video is the first of those catch-up videos. Today is taking you through what I wore in the month of April, and in particular what I wore the most. Now, the month of April was a bit of a strange month for me. I was sick for quite a few days out of the month, and we also travelled to Europe at the end of April because I was speaking at a conference in Spain and I didn't record everything that I wore while I was away. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't have as many records of things that I actually wore, particularly around the time we were traveling. And there were also quite a few days that I didn't wear any perfume at all because I was not well. With all of that said, let's get into the list. So I have 12 fragrances that I wore more than once during the month, and I'll take you through those now. The first one is Ambre 114 by Histoire de Parfum. This is a fantastic amber. It's kind of a reference amber for me. It's quite fluffy. It's very resinous without being too sweet. I do find that a lot of amber, straight up amber perfumes can be quite sweet because they have quite a lot of vanilla in the amber accord. This one is beautifully balanced. It's got a hint of sweetness without being too overbearing. It's quite airy. It creates a beautiful scent cloud around you, and it warms up so spectacularly on the skin, and it also layers really well with other things. And in fact, one of the 2 times that I wore it this month, I did actually layer it with Desert Rosewood from Goldfield & Banks. I really love that layering combination. So that was Histoire de Parfum Ambre 114. Next up, I don't actually have a bottle to show you. It was a travel size that I was wearing, but then I had a few drops left in it and I ended up gifting that on to somebody else because I actually have a new bottle on its way to me as we speak. The fragrance that I'm speaking of is Levant by Mon Guerlain. It's a very pretty, diffusive, citrusy, musky white floral. I think it's mostly white floral, although I think there is peony in there as well. But it has other things like jasmine, lily of the valley, lots of orange blossom, but really light and airy and translucent. It's a fabulous perfume. It wasn't one of the ones that I actually was drawn to when I first discovered that line, the Route de la Soie line from Mon Guerlain. I was much more drawn to fragrances like Tian and Tanja, but over time I've really developed a love for Levant. It's just such a easy to wear perfume and works in so many different circumstances. So that one, I'm very pleased to have a bottle coming to me. I did not purchase the bottle. It is being sent to me as a gift from Mon Guerlain, but I'm very excited to receive it because my travel size was almost done. So that was that one. And as I said, I wore that twice. The next one that I wore twice was Gardenia by Chanel. This is from the Les Exclusives line. This is pretty much a new bottle. I did purchase this a few months ago. This is not a perfume I've really paid that much attention to over the years. I was much more inclined to reach for or try other perfumes from the Les Exclusives line. Even though I am a white floral lover, Gardenia is not always a floral note that I am particularly drawn to. Sometimes it can be very heavy and very earthy and very voluptuous, sometimes a bit dusty as well. And I don't know, it is one of those florals that usually isn't my favorite. I normally like it when it's paired with other florals, and I certainly like gardenia flowers in real life and the smell of them in real life, but for some reason in perfumery it's just not something that I particularly seek out. But when I was looking for a wedding perfume last year, this was one that got recommended to me many, many times over. And so consequently, I decided that I would seek it out and start to sample it. And as it turns out, I also had quite a few samples of this because Gardenia seems to be one of those ones that the sales assistants always seem to have samples of. And consequently, whenever I went into the store, whether it was to buy skincare or just to have a look at stuff, they'd often send me out with samples, and generally it's either this or Coco Mademoiselle I would always end up with a sample of. So I've got loads of samples of Coco Mademoiselle that I usually end up giving out to people. But because people had been recommending this one to me specifically for a potential wedding scent, I hoarded all of my Gardenia samples and started to wear it, and it is a very beautiful scent profile. Now, it is, even though it's called Gardenia, and Gardenia is, I think, the star of the show, this is paired with other florals as well. I think there's orange blossom, probably a bit of jasmine. It comes off as being slightly green and really fresh. Again, this comes off as being quite translucent, and it seems like a really light fragrance. And when I spray it on, I feel like, oh, this isn't going to last very long. But I do actually get quite a few hours wear out of this, although admittedly it's not projecting for that full length of time. It definitely has a Chanel characteristic about it, although I don't know if there's specifically aldehydes in here. It does have quite a musky feel in the dry down, along with a little bit of woodiness. But for the most part, it's really about the florals, and particularly that gardenia. There's also something kind of zesty in here. Maybe zesty isn't the right word, but almost a little bit tart. But I don't know what it is, whether it's a fruit note or whether it's something coming from those florals, or maybe it's just some citruses that they've put in here. I'm not sure, but there is definitely something that has a bit of a zing to it that helps to add to the freshness, along with those that sort of green aspect that is in here. So I really enjoyed wearing that one. Next up, I also wore number 22 by Chanel twice this month. I love this perfume. This is an aldehydic floral. It is described in most forums as being an aldehydic white floral, and I think that's even how they describe it on the website. There is rose in here, and I feel like I really do get the rose quite a bit. To me, I feel like that rose is much more front and center than the white florals. The white florals are there, but it took me longer, excuse me, the white florals are there, but it took me longer to sort of identify them as being white florals, because this does have a bit more of a vintage feel to it, like an old school perfume. And sometimes those white florals can come off feeling quite dark, and then I was attributing that to being mostly due to the rose. But it's basically an aldehydic soapy floral, and I adore it. So that is number 22, the Eau de Parfum. Another aldehydic floral, but one that goes in quite a different direction, is Rose Barbare by Guerlain. I don't know if I'm saying that. I never know if I'm saying that right. Is it Barbare or Barbare? I'm not sure. But this is an aldehydic rose floral, but it has a prominent honey aspect to it, which helps to add sweetness, but it doesn't add, I don't think, a lot of weight to the perfume. A lot of honeyed floral perfumes that I've come across in the past all seem to be quite heavy and dense, and this doesn't do that. But in combination with the aldehydes in here, it does have this interesting, I want to call it waxy, but it's not quite waxy. I want to call it bitter, but it's also not quite bitter. But there's just this edge to this perfume that I think comes from the combination of that honey with the florals and the aldehydes in here. In some aspects, when you first spray it on, it almost feels marzipan-y in a way, but it's not almond. It's just so different from number 22 or any other aldehydic floral that I've ever tried. And I just, it's so hard to describe. And consequently, it's also one that I don't find is particularly easy to wear. It is beautiful, but sometimes I find the opening of this a little bit challenging until it warms up on my skin and the honey and the aldehydes and the florals just sort of blend in, and you get more of the woody floral tones that with the aldehydes and the honey kind of supporting that. It is a bit of a weird one. It's kind of cold, but then it's also warm. It sort of starts out a little bit cold and then it warms. Once it warms up on your skin, it does actually feel a lot warmer, and the sillage on it is absolutely beautiful once it has warmed up on your skin. That's why this one took me a while to actually pick it up, because I would go into store and I would try it and I don't think I love it. But then I would walk out of the store and a few hours later I'd be going, what is that? What is it that I'm smelling? And then the day that I decided that I wanted to pick up a bottle was the day that I got home after trying this on. And I actually went into the department store and didn't try anything else on other than this, because I wanted to see what this did on my skin, and I wanted to be able to make sure I wasn't just thinking I was smelling one of the other perfumes that I had on. And Matt actually said to me, what are you wearing? That smells really good. And I went, well, maybe I need to buy it then. So I did. So that is Rose Barbare by Guerlain. And then the last perfume that I wore twice this month was 1957 by Chanel. We've got a Chanel heavy month this month. This is one that also took me a while to come around to. It is quite expensive for what it is, but at the same time, it is very beautiful. And I think the story with this one is that it is actually a combination of different musks, and obviously the musks are synthetic because they don't use real musk anymore, but they've coupled sort of this blend of synthetic musks with iris and aldehydes and woods, light woods like cedar. It's kind of spicy, and it's also got a hint of sweetness in here as well. So when I first spray it on, I feel, oh, it's very light and diffusive, but there is quite a bit of weight in here. But like most musk dominant perfumes, you do have to put it on skin and let it warm up. That said, it is quite a light fragrance. It doesn't project a huge amount, I don't think, but it does, even though it sits close to the skin, it does create enough of a scent bubble that you can smell yourself for hours on end. At least I can. And I just really adore wearing this. I find it very easy to wear. I like wearing it to work. I like layering it with other things. Although, to be fair, layering it with other things does feel like a bit of a waste sometimes. But I do often actually layer this with number 22. I did not do that in this instance. In April, when I wore it just on its own. But I have been known to layer this with other things. Anyway, it's a beautiful musk. It is expensive for what it is, but for me, it's still worth it because it's just beautiful, and I feel really beautiful when I'm wearing this. Okay, so now we are moving on to the perfumes that I wore 3 times. The first one is a bottle that was actually sent to me in PR. This is Silky Woods by Goldfield & Banks, and you are going to get lots of reflection from this bottle because it is very reflective. So this is obviously an adaptation of the original Silky Woods, which I don't own, and it's been a long time since I've actually smelled it, so I can't even compare it for you at this point in time. I should probably get myself a sample of Silky Woods, because I remember when I first tried Silky Woods, the original eau de parfum, I found it very challenging actually. But with this one, and this one is an absolute powerhouse, and it does have that really dark woody element in here. But I don't find it to be as challenging as what I remember Silky Woods being when I smelled that the first time. This still has a lot of vanilla in here, and the woods feel, even though they're quite punchy and they're very dark, I still feel like they just somehow blend a bit softer than the original Silky Woods that I remember. But what's really interesting with this one is there is a fig element in here, and it's like a really young green fig fruit. And I think across the board, most people have said the same thing. It's just, if you've ever smelled an underripe fig fruit, it really resembles the fig element that's in here. And what I really like about this perfume is that even though you've got quite a lot of heavy notes, really quite dark, heavy woods, lots of balsamic notes, lots of vanilla, and it's quite dense, but somehow the fig accord in here stands up to all of that, and it just provides this really fresh, almost zingy green edge to the perfume that would otherwise be really dark and heavy and syrupy and sweet. So I really like this. It is very strong, and I struggle to wear it because of how strong it is, because once you've put a few drops of this on your skin, you're committed. You're going to be wearing this for a while. But luckily for me, Matt really likes this one, so he wears it and I still get to smell it. And occasionally I might put some on my wrist or something if I just want to get whiffs of it a little bit more. But I get to enjoy it, but without having to commit to the wear time, because it is a very long wear time. However, it's a great perfume. So that is Silky Woods Elixir by Goldfield & Banks. All right, on the opposite end of the spectrum from Silky Woods Elixir, we have Serpentine by Comme des Garçons. Now, this is a fairly recent addition to my wardrobe. I was wearing Comme des Garçons Floriental quite a bit. I think it might have been back in March, maybe. I'm pretty sure I've already talked about it. And it just sort of got me thinking about this brand again. So I just got it in my head that I wanted to see what else they had, because I know they have a lot of really cool fragrances, but I've only ever owned one or two. So I got onto their website, I was checking out what they had to offer, and I came across this one and I'd never seen this before. And this is a fantastic fresh perfume. It's like a grassy green perfume that has almost a juiciness to it, but it's also aldehydic. So it's very cooling. I wouldn't say that it smells like concrete, but the cooling effect of this perfume is sort of similar to cool concrete. I know they have a perfume in their line called Concrete, and I've picked up a discovery set from Comme des Garçons because, like I said, there's loads of perfumes that they have in their range, and a lot of them I've never tried. This is possibly my best freshy discovery of the last few years. Actually, there was one last year that I also discovered, which was really fantastic. For those of you who are in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment and sweltering through a heat wave, if you are looking for a really great, fresh, cooling fragrance, then I highly recommend checking this out. It is also a little bit aquatic, but the aquaticness isn't like most other aquatic perfumes. I don't think they've used cologne or a heavy dose of it, at least, in this perfume to get this effect. And that's usually what puts me off a lot of other aquatic fragrances, because I don't think I really like that note of cologne. But this has been done so beautifully. I think this will be one that I'd be really keen to reach for if we ever get into the depths of winter here in Brisbane, because this weekend has been quite warm actually. It's 27 degrees yesterday. I feel like this is one of those ones that I would reach for when I'm really sick of winter and I'm sick of being locked indoors and I just want to feel like a breath of fresh air. This is the type of fragrance that I would reach for, and I think this year this is exactly what I'll be reaching for. It's fantastic. Yeah, highly recommend. So that was Serpentine by Comme des Garçons. Next up is another Chanel. I wore this 3 times. This is 31 Rue Cambon. And I have been wanting a bottle of this for the longest time. It's a very green, woody iris perfume. Very classic smelling, very elegant, totally unisex, totally anytime wear type of perfume. It's got a balminess to it as well. It feels warm whilst at the same time also having those cooler elements of green notes and woody notes. It's very captivating, this perfume. As I said, I think it's entirely unisex. It's beautiful. So that is 31 Rue Cambon. I picked this bottle up secondhand in the Facebook groups, hence why I've got the big massive bottle. I'm really, really happy to have this. The next one that I also wore 3 times is Material by Amouage. Probably doesn't need much introduction because this really got quite a lot of hype last year or the year before. I can't quite remember how long ago now. This is a really great resinous vanilla perfume that isn't gourmand vanilla, at least not in my book. It doesn't come across smelling like dessert. It's very resinous, quite spicy, a little bit leathery as well. It's very dense, quite dark. I really like wearing this at night time to go to bed. It's just, it's very cozy. If you veer away from vanilla because you're too scared of it being too sweet, then I definitely recommend checking this out. It is not cheap, but I personally feel like this is worth the money. I will say though, make sure if you're testing it, you must put it on your skin, because the first time I ever tried this, I just put it on a strip, a blotter strip, and I felt like I couldn't really smell anything. It wasn't until I put it on my skin and let things warm up that it came to life. So that is Material by Amouage, and I wore it 3 times. The next perfume that I also wore 3 times is one that I can't show you because I've actually gifted it on. It was a 10 ml travel size of Vanille des Afriques by Mon Guerlain, a really great vanilla perfume. I didn't feel like I needed to hold on to it, however, because I have a massive 120 ml bottle of its predecessor, Vanille d'Iris, or Vanille d'Iris, and they're very similar. They dry down almost exactly the same, but Vanille des Afriques is a lot darker than Vanille d'Iris, and it's also more floral and woody. I really loved both of them, and to me, as I said, they dried down to be pretty much exactly the same. So I didn't feel like I needed both, and I wasn't prepared to part with my original bottle of Vanille d'Iris. So that's what I held on to, and somebody else got the travel size of the Vanille des Afriques. And then finally, the last perfume that I wore 3 times in the month of April was one that I had a little mini of that I bought on eBay, which you would have seen, I think maybe in my haul video where I talked about some Dior perfumes that I had bought on eBay, and I used up the entire mini, and then somebody posted a full bottle of this for sale in the Facebook group, and so I decided to buy it. This is Vanilla Diorama by Maison Christian Dior. This is a fantastic vanilla perfume. It's resinous, it's got patchouli in there, it's a tiny little bit leathery, but not too much, not as much as the Material by Amouage. It's just a really great vanilla perfume, and this, I think I said it in the last video where I talked about this. This kind of ended up being what I had always wanted Spiritueuse Double Vanille to be. Spiritueuse Double Vanille was very nice. I just wasn't seeing what everyone else was seeing. And this doesn't have the incense, I don't think, but Spiritueuse Double Vanille had always been described to me as being a boozy, dark vanilla, but I never really got the booziness of Spiritueuse Double Vanille. It always smelled quite woody and incensey and dry, and it was very nice, but for some reason it just wasn't speaking to me the way it obviously speaks to a lot of other people who talk about it a lot and who love it a lot. But this one I really like. You know, I really like the booziness of this, but I also really like the orangey opening that it has. It's got like this dark spiced orange opening, maybe a little bit aromatic. And then when it dries down, I get lots of the patchouli, which I really enjoy. So that is Vanilla Diorama by Dior. And I wore it 3 times. All right, so that is it for the perfumes that I wore multiple times. And then I'll just quickly, as I have in the previous videos, I'll just quickly run through the rest of the perfumes that I recorded, which I only wore once. So I wore Tanger by Mon Guerlain, Supreme Bouquet by YSL as part of their Vestiaire collective line, Feminissime by Gallimard. Did not really enjoy that one. That is one that I picked up in Grasse last year, just like a little sample. I bought it in a discovery set and I didn't really enjoy it. It smelled a lot like La Vie Belle to me and I didn't really like it. The Favourite by Penhaligon's, Valkyrie by Sylvain Delacourt, 1904 by Histoire de Parfum, La Fille de Berlin, which is a really great rose perfume from Serge Lutens, Clean Musk by Sarah Horowitz, of course, although I'm pretty sure I actually would have worn that many, many times because I tend to wear that one to the gym. So I think I probably did wear it more than once, but I didn't record my gym scent every day. Precious Forest by Keiko Mecheri, Songe by Goutal, French Kiss by Guerlain, Diroriviera by Dior, Maison Christian Dior. My perfume that we made at Gallimard when we were in Grasse, Jasmin des Anges by Dior, Floriental by Comme des Garçons, Montabaco Flor by Ormond Jane, Libre Intense by YSL, Jubilation 25 by Amouage, Epic Woman by Amouage, Memoir Woman by Amouage, 1932 by Chanel, Iris by Houbigant, 1472 by Histoire de Parfum, Tian by Frassailles, Joy by Jean Petot. I have a really old vintage, tiny little vintage bottle and yeah, I really enjoyed wearing that. L'Iris by Santa Maria Novella, Mon Guerlain Florale by Guerlain. I probably layered those two actually because I do like to wear those together. New Look 1947 by Dior and Desert Rosewood by Goldfield & Banks. So that concludes what I wore in April. Please do share what you've been wearing, and if you can remember as far back as April, by all means, share what you wore the most, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.